While Nuwa was in a deep sleep, a great war broke out in the universe. The water god Gonggong, who had long harbored resentment toward the fire god Zhulong, led an army of shrimp soldiers and crab generals to launch an attack on the fire god. The vanguard generals, Shangliu and Faiyu, charged toward the bright palace where the fire god resided. They extinguished the eternal divine flames that surrounded the palace. In an instant, the entire earth was plunged into complete darkness. The fire god Zhulong rode out on a fire dragon, its body engulfed in blazing flames, to meet the enemy. Wherever he went, the clouds dispersed, the rain ceased, and the darkness quietly receded, restoring light to the earth. The water god Gonggong, enraged and humiliated, ordered Shangliu and Faiyu to gather the waters from the 3 rivers and the 5 seas, and pour them toward Zhulong and his forces. In an instant, turbid waves cascaded from the sky, dark tides surged, and the white clouds were submerged, once again dousing the divine flames. However, as the floodwaters receded, the divine flames reignited. With the help of the wind god, whom Zhulong had called upon, the wind fanned the flames, and the fire, propelled by the wind, surged fiercely toward Gonggong. Gonggong and his forces tried to keep the floodwaters in place to combat the fire, but the waters had already flowed for miles, and there was no way to hold them back. The flames, like long tongues, whipped toward them. Gonggong and his forces were burned, their heads and bodies scorched, staggering and tumbling in all directions. Gonggong led his water army, fighting while retreating, until they finally escaped back to the sea. He was confident that Zhulong, faced with the floodwaters, would surely give up. With that, he stood proudly in his water palace, feeling victorious. Unexpectedly, Zhulong was determined to win this time. He pursued with all his might. Wherever the fire dragon passed, the seawater could not resist, surging and parting to the sides, clearing a wide path for the flames to advance. Zhulong advanced directly toward the water palace, and Gonggong and his forces had no choice but to brace themselves and come out to face him in battle. Representing light, Zhulong emerged victorious. Faiyu died of anger, Shangliu fled in defeat, and Gonggong, exhausted both physically and mentally, could no longer fight. In a sorry state, he retreated, fleeing toward the horizon. Gonggong fled all the way to Mount Buzhou. When he turned around, he saw that the pursuers were already close behind. Filled with shame and rage, he charged headfirst into the mountainside. With a deafening crash, Mount Buzhou was actually struck and broke in two by Gonggong's collision. When Mount Buzhou collapsed, a great disaster befell the world. It turned out that Mount Buzhou was the great pillar supporting the sky. With the pillar broken, half of the sky collapsed, revealing a jagged, cavernous hole. Immediately, the heavenly river poured down, and floods surged across the land. With the breaking of the heavenly pillar, the ground was also torn apart. Deep cracks appeared everywhere, some stretching for thousands of miles. In some places, fiery red lava surged out, burning everything it touched as it flowed across the land. The climate also went out of control. The sky, dark and heavy, was constantly filled with fierce storms, lightning, and thunder. The thunderbolts set trees on fire, causing wildfires to spread through the mountains and forests. Fierce beasts and predatory birds, unable to find shelter in the forests, descended upon the human settlements, wreaking havoc and destruction. In addition to the flooding, wildfires, and fierce beasts, a vicious black dragon emerged in the Ji province. With its fangs bared and claws outstretched, it rode the roaring, muddy waves, chasing and devouring the helpless people who were fleeing the disaster. At that time, the world resembled a living hell. Everywhere was scorched earth, stretching for thousands of miles, with piles of white bones scattered about. The surviving people climbed to a few high mountains to seek refuge. But to their dismay, the mountain bases were also severed by flowing lava, and the mountains themselves began to float away with the floodwaters.